There was a certain tzaddik that had to go to a place, he had to pass through a place that normally tzaddikim don't like to pass through, a place of a lot of tumah, a place of a lot of impurity. And he had no choice. For whatever reason, he had to go to this particular place. And he passed through and he commented to someone, "What's pshat? I felt a lot of kedusha." It's a very unusual feeling when you go past such a place of such tumah, such impurity. He felt so much kedusha. And somebody, another tzaddik, explained to him, maybe the pshat is as follows, that there's a certain siyata d'shmaya, that when a person is in a place of tumah, and he has opportunities to look at that which he doesn't, to do the wrong thing, and he doesn't do that, then the klipas of kedusha that are left there are incredible. When a person has the opportunity, when a person could theoretically do something and he turns around and he says no, the kedusha that causes is the most incredible thing. And therefore, said the tzaddik, it must be in this place there were people that went past, that went into this area, that did not look, that did not do the wrong thing. And therefore the kedusha that it left was incredible. The Shem Shmuel says a moyed kazach. The Shem Shmuel is explaining a Zohar Kodesh, where the Zohar Kodesh explains that a person can become a tzaddik gomor, the Russian of the Zohar Kodesh, b'shochado u'beregachado, in one moment. Explains the Heilige Shem Shmuel as moyed kazach. My boy said this is unbelievable. Says the Shem Shmuel there are two ways a person can become a tzaddik. A person can become a huge tzaddik, a tzaddik gomor. How do you do it? Two ways. Way number one, method number one, is you can toil tirelessly, again and again, day after day, working on yourself, improving yourself, becoming a better person until eventually you reach the level of a tzaddik. That's one way of doing it. Says the Shem Shmuel, there's another way, a shortcut, an easy way, that when a person has the opportunity to look at something, to press those buttons, to look across the street or whatever it may be, and he decides, no, I'm not going to do it. Says the Shem Shmuel, he becomes a tzaddik gomor instantly. You know what that means? That means, Rabbi Isai, when a person has the opportunity, when a person could do something and he turns around and says, no, I'm not going to. I don't want to do it because I don't want to get what's going to be waiting for me in the next world. I want to have a better marriage. I want to have a better relationship with the Rabbi Shalom. So many things. Apart from all of those things, says the Shem Shmuel, he becomes a tzaddik gomor instantly. And the nisyonos are great. You know, just in this week's parsha, I had a beautiful, beautiful idea from the Manchester Rosh Hashiva Zeichat Tzaddik v'Kodesh Livrocha, from your father's sefer, my wife's sefer, Gavaldige. Unbelievable you said in this week's parsha, Parsha B'Shalach. We're told that the Torah says that Rebbeinu Shalom didn't want Klal Yisrael to go by the Pelishtim. Why not? Because maybe there's going to be a Mulchama, and there'll be a Mulchama, they're going to go back to Mitzrayim. What does that mean? So, not now to discuss the whole Indian of the Parsha, but just in a small way. The Manchester Rosh Hashiva explains that Klal Yisrael were holding on such a high madrega. They saw the Nisim in Mitzrayim, they saw the Makkahs, they saw everything. They saw Kriyas Yamsuf, they were holding on the highest madrega, but yet the Rabbeinu Shalom was so worried. Maybe they're going to fall. That's a chizuk to every single one of us. Even Klal Yisrael, who left Mitzrayim, who practically saw the Rabbeinu Shalom's hand, Kaviyachol. And even they were subject to an assumption that they could have fallen. Kol shekin us simple people, we're also subject to many nisyonos. We could also fall, whatever the madrega that you're on. And that's what the Manchester Rosh Hashiva says. The people who are on such a high madrega, that shows don't trust yourself. I don't care what madrega you're on. And that's what I said in the beginning. And I'm just, backing that up over here. People say, it's not again to me, we don't discuss these things over here. No such thing. No such thing. The Metzias says every single person can have an assign. And he goes on to say such a beautiful thing. He goes on to say, he says such a gavaldige yisoid. He says, I don't understand. Why this Nisayan? Why the Nisayan of the Mulchama? Why did the Rabbi Shalom say, no, don't go near the Pelishtim, there'll be a Mulchama. And then maybe they'll go back. What about all the other Nisayanis? the tremendous nisonos they have, the nisonon of the Slav, the Mon, the Egel, the Meraglim, all the other nisonos, that's okay. Oh, but this one, we can't get Klal Yisrael to go anywhere near over there. Explains the Manishta Rosh Hashiva. So beautiful. Because obviously the Rebbeinu Shalom understood that this nisonon they won't cope with, but every other one they could. You know what that means? That means when every single one of us have a nisonon, and there isn't a person who doesn't have a nisonon. Chazal tell us that. It means if the Rebbeinu Shalom gave you a nisonon, you can do it. It has to be that way. It has to be that way because you see from the parasha this week, Parashas B'Shalach, that this nisonon, the Rebbeinu Shalom says, no. This one you can't do because you can't cope with it. But every other nisonon you can, that you could cope. So none of this, I can't go, Rabbi, it's too difficult, I can't do this, it's overpowering my Yitzhak. No. If the Rebbeinu Shalom gives you a nisonon, it means he held that you can overcome it. And the biggest problem, and we mentioned this last week and we're going to mention it again, because this I feel is the biggest yesod that we have to know, and we have to reiterate this again and again. Because this is the yesod of how we get up. And that is to realize after the fall, after we fell, after we went through a situation where we may have looked, where we may have pressed, you have to realize that people get upset. And I've heard this many times from people, they get very down, very upset, how can I do this? And there's no point trying anymore. Can you imagine nobody's in the middle of a war, right? Imagine in the middle of a war. I've had Talmidim sitting around the table who have gone through the army, and they tell me their experiences fighting various situations in Gaza, jumping down from helicopters, all sorts of crazy stories, right? And could you imagine in the middle of one of these fights, all of a sudden one of your friend, your fellow soldier, Rahman al-Aleinu, drops in the middle of the fight? What are you going to do? You're right in the middle. The enemy's right there. They're coming at you. What are you going to do? Oi. Now, of course, you want to express your anguish, you want to express your anger, you want to express your emotions, but you're in the middle of a war. You're in the middle, the enemy's coming at you. What are you doing? Rabbi Isa, we're in the middle of a war. We're in the middle of a milchama. The Rebbeinu Shalom is throwing every possible book in the trick, every possible trick in the book to see if she can get us. Right before Yemos HaMashiach, as we mentioned last time. Every single trick in the book. The question is, are you going to overcome that nisonon? Are you going to rise above it? Are you going to be better than that? Or are you going to let it take over you? Rent-free space in your brain. How many people have that? That this nisonon lives in their brain, lives in their emotions, lives in their body, rent-free. It takes you over completely. You become an animal. That's the only difference really. Chazal tell us between an animal and a human being is we have the seichel. What does seichel mean? Seichel means the understanding to say no. The understanding that we're not an animal. We don't just follow our horse instincts. Do whatever the body tells it to do. Whatever your body wants it to do. Sure, why not? It feels good. Shem Yerachim. Likutei Moharan brings down that there are people that leave their entire olam haba for 15 minutes of pleasure. That's all it is. And one of the things that I want to mention tonight is the idea of preparation. He told us Yaakov Yosef in Shoftim brings down actually what they bring as a joke. There's many of them are from the Baal Shem Tov. And he says somebody fell into a pit and he couldn't climb out. And a person passed by and sees this fellow in the pit and says, what's going on over here? He says, I can't get out. Could you help me? So the guy says to him, you know what you should do? Go home, get a ladder, and this way you'll be able to climb out the pit. That's what the Toldos Yaakov Yosef brings down. So Mendele, one of the prime Talmidim of the Baal Shem Tov, explained Pshat. What does it mean? It says there's a tremendous lesson in Avodas Hashem. The lesson is that we have to prepare ourselves before we fall. Yes, once we fall, we have to know how to deal with it. But the best thing would be was to realize what to do once we have fallen and try to prepare ourselves not from falling as well. And that's how important it is. A person has to realize that yes, once we've fallen, we have to get back up, but try to prepare ourselves. I want to speak a couple of ideas. We mentioned last week, the idea from the Stipler. The Stipler says in a letter that there's no greater tikkun for a fall than overcoming the difficulty of getting up and starting again. And he says this is the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara gets you once you're down and says, listen, you did it already. You broke your streak. So just keep on going anyway. What's the difference anyway? You think God really cares? You broke it already, it's done. That's what the Yetzer Hara does. He can get you down, he'll get you to stay down. What you've got to realize is to jump back up. Another thing, Rabbi say, the power of 90 days. Very interesting. People think that once I've seen something, so it's over. Now, we spoke about that right in the beginning, and there is some truth to that, 100%. But tshuva, a person can get past it. A person saw something. A person saw something a while ago. He wants to get rid of it. I can't get rid of it. It's always in my head. The image is right there every single time. Open up my eyes. It's right there. What am I meant to do? The answer is the person has to realize there's never a too late time to turn back. There was a study in 2015 by a book called Level Up, a brain-based strategy book by Andrea Samadi. It's 2015, and she made a study. And the study was that if a person refrains from an addictive behavior for 90 days, then they would find it much easier to stop the addictive patterns. Thank you very much for that, but Chazal knew this obviously a lot earlier than that. We know this already from the halacha of the same Talamoto Bracha, that if you daven 90 days, if you daven 90 tefillas, 30 days, right, 3 times a day, and you say it, then automatically it has a koyach of putting something inside you, instilling within you. And therefore, when a person thinks, okay, I've done it, I've seen it, now what? The answer is challenge yourself to 90 days. Challenge yourself to 90 days without looking, and you'll see that the images will slowly, by the way, interestingly enough, that the gematria of tzaddik is 90, right? Because if a person wants to become a tzaddik, you stop for 90 days, you'll see the images slowly but surely fade away. And I've heard this from people. I've heard this from people, because Baruch Hashem, I've given these shown before, and people come over to me, people write to me, all sorts of things, and I've heard this from people who said they have tried and they have been successful. I will tell you a Moedik Azach to back this up. There's a Moedik Medrash, Parshas Vayechi, powerful Medrash. Somebody actually wrote me an email last week saying that I didn't mention this Medrash this year, so I've got to mention the Medrash this year. The Medrash says in Parshas Vayechi, he rings a Maisa with Ramasya ben Choresh. Ramasya ben Choresh was someone we can't even understand. Sitting in the Medrash, Chazal explained that his face looked and shined like the sun. His face looked like a malach. He had never looked at a woman his entire lifetime. Once the Satan passed him and said, chutzpah, how can this be that this Yid has never done an Aveira? Can't be. So he went to the Rabbeinu Shalom. Said, Rabbeinu Shalom, who is this man to you? Medrash says, Hashem says, he's a tzaddik gomo. Said the Satan, give me permission. I'll give him a smartphone for a few days, we'll see what happens. Give me permission, come on. Give me permission, I'll test him. Rabbeinu Shalom says, forget about it. Forget it, it's all over. There is no way, you will not be able to. He's never looked at a woman in his entire lifetime. Satan says, give me permission. Just give me permission. Hashem says, okay, go. So he dressed up as one of the most beautiful women to ever walk planet Earth. And he goes in front of Ramasya ben Choresh, and he starts to try and tempt him. And he sees in the corner of his eyes, he sees a skirt, something, whatever. He looks away. He goes to that direction. He looks away. He goes to that direction. He saw that there's no way out. What am I going to do? Everywhere I look, there's a woman over there. So he asked his Talmidim, take a metal rod, please, and put it into the fire for a few minutes. Get it glowing hot. Geschmack. He took the rod that was glowing hot and he pierced both of his eyes out. He says, I can't see anymore. I can't see anymore. That's it. The Satan saw that he started shaking. The Satan started shaking. A Yid can do such a thing to stop himself from a Aveira. He went back to Rabbeinu Shalom. He said, Hashem Yerachim. He says, go back, ask him, we can give you back the sight. So he said, I promise, I can give you back your sight. He says, no, I'm not interested. I'm not interested in my sight back anymore. He says, Medrash, you know what we see from here? You know what we see from here? What's Chazal telling us? What's the story all about? The answer is that if a person stops, if a person prevents himself, if a person learns to control himself, the Rabbeinu Shalom removes the Yetzer Hara to some degree from you. And that's an incredible thing. And that's what a person has to realize. We'll talk in Mitzvah Hashem about the guilt. That in Mitzvah Hashem we'll talk about maybe next week. But there's another thing, what we call the 3-second rule. The 3-second rule, people use it when food falls on the floor, but there's a 3-second rule. And that is we know from Yosef HaTzadik. Yosef HaTzadik, when he was tempted with Eishes Potiphar, what does the pasuk say? Vayonas, he ran. He ran. She grabbed him by the bacon and he ran. Why did he run? Says the Sforno. You know why he ran? Because if he wouldn't have run, if he would have given it a few seconds just to think about it, maybe it would have been too late. And he ran. Because he realized it's now. It's almost the opposite to, I once took a course on dealing with depression and suicide. Unfortunately, we were dealing with people of that. It was a number of years ago. We were dealing with people in that category, and they sent us to a certain thing. One of the things they taught us was, if you have a person that we should never know of such people, there should never be such people, that wants to commit suicide, don't tell him no. It doesn't work. He's thought about it. He's got all the logic. He wants to do it. You're going to tell him no. He's going to say no. Okay, fine, sure, no problem. It doesn't work that way. The way to do it is to delay him. Delay him. Yeah. Just in a few minutes, we'll, give it more time to think, and maybe you'll be able to eventually start to figure out how to do it, send him to hospital, whatever it may be. Over here, it's totally the opposite. The more you think, the worse it is. You cannot think. The minute the temptation comes into you and you start typing or you start looking, that second, Vayonos, run! Don't give it a second. You give it a second, it's too late. It's the 3-second rule. The moment you have a few seconds, it doesn't work. Rabbi said, Klal Yisrael on a high madriga. Klal Yisrael on a high madriga. We should be better than this. We have to be better than this. A wealthy man comes into a yeshiva looking for a son-in-law. I'm going to support him. This way he can come home for Pesach every year. So I'm going to support him. I need to have the best son-in-law. I've got to have my greatest masmid. I want the best boy in yeshiva. Give me the best boy in yeshiva. So Shira says, best boy in yeshiva? Yankala. Can I take Yankala? Sure, no problem. Make a beautiful chasana. He sits down. He tells his son, I'm going to support you for the rest of your life. I want you to learn Bas Mada Gedola. So in the beginning of straight after the Sheva Brachas, there he is, plugging away, 14, 16 hours a day. Unbelievable nachas his father-in-law is getting. And as the months go by, the father-in-law notices that his learning isn't what it used to be. And he starts basically working it out that he was learning about 4 or 5 hours a day. He calls in his son and says, this wasn't the deal. The deal wasn't you'd learn 5 hours a day. The deal was a whole day. I want to see a masmid, I want to see a gadol, I want to see what you're going to become. He says, my dear Shver, when I was learning in yeshiva, everyone was learning, so, I had to learn a lot in order to be the best, to be the top, in order to get where I got to. Look at the village where you live. Nobody's learning anything. Yeah, they rock up for a share here and there, but no one's learning anything. My 5 hours a day is incredible, because compared to everybody else. Shver says, no. I wanted a top bacha. I wanted a top son-in-law to sit and to steig in that, because of that I wanted to support you. I don't care what it's relative to anybody else. That doesn't bother me. The pudding's about you. Said the Dubna Maggid, when it comes to Inyone Kedusha, people think, well, look at the world. The world, Hashem Yerachim, the world is in a place where Mamish, probably even lower than Memta Sharitum, they were right by Mitzrayim. If we try a little bit, Enochanami, 100%, if we try that, we do. The Rebbeinu Shalom loves, cherishes, and looks and says, my dear son, look what he's trying. But it's not relative to somebody else. It's about you. It's about what you can accomplish. It's every single little tiny thing that you personally accomplish is looked by the Rebbeinu Shalom to be so choshev. And I want to end with a very, very, very scary Rambam. The Rambam says in Perush HaMishnayos at the end of Masechtas Brachas, very, very scary thing. On the Mishnah that tells us a pasuk in Tehillim, Eis lasos la Hashem eferus oresecha. Says the Rambam, very scary. There comes a time when the Rebbeinu Shalom wants to destroy a person for all of his averos. So he creates the situation, he creates the circumstances where the person is given the opportunity to either violate or refrain from violating an Issa one last time. So he'll get his real reward. Says the Rambam, this is so deep you don't even chap, but the Rambam says that it's so deep. And he says, the Rebbeinu Shalom explains that pasuk, and the Rambam says every individual will get that opportunity. Every single individual, says the Rambam, will get the opportunity where the Rebbeinu Shalom gives you one opportunity to say, here, what are you going to do with this opportunity? Here's the computer, here's the phone, here's the street, here's whatever it may be. The opportunity is there. The question is, which opportunity do we have that the Rebbeinu Shalom is watching us and he's testing us and saying, from this one Maisa, from this one time that you refrain, you can save everything. You can save everything. You can erase everything. Everything you ever did, says the Rambam, by the one time the Rebbeinu Shalom is giving you this one Nisayan, boom, you make it, it's all gone. You don't make it, Rachmana litzlan. Says the Rambam, every individual is going to have that opportunity. And that's why a person has to realize. And let me just end with one last Kaval de Gazach that the Kosher Tzabagid said. He said, a story that we've mentioned here once before, but again, a story that we have to say, of the famous carpenter in Vienna that made such a beautiful piece, beautiful, gorgeous piece that he sold for thousands and thousands, and some wealthy guy bought it to put his diamonds and his pearls and his watches as a showcase in the dining room. Years later, this designer was walking the streets of Vienna, years later, and his shoelace broke. So he says, excuse me, do you know anywhere I can get my shoes fixed? Oh, there's a shop down there. So he goes to the shop, he follows the instructions, he walks in, and there it is. He sees the beautiful cabinet. This was the most exquisite, gorgeous, unique cabinet. The woodwork, the glass, the shapes, the whole... It was gorgeous. That looks like a piece of dirt. The window's smashed. It's all knocked and bruised. It's all over. It's disgusting. What happened was that the original owner lost all his money. The banks came and took everything, along with this beautiful, exquisite piece of furniture. They sold it to someone, who sold it to someone, who sold it to someone. Eventually it got so bad that eventually it wasn't worth anything, and it got taken to the, a guy who fixes shoes. And it was used to display shoelaces. This is my beautiful work. Where is it? Rabbi say, the Ribbono Shel Olam gave us the most beautiful, tahor, clean neshama. We come down into the world, gets a little bit bruised, a little bit bashed, a little bit doesn't look the same way as when it came down. When we return that beautiful neshama to the Ribbono Shel Olam after 120 years, what does it look like? We want Be'ezah Hashem that it looks as beautiful as we got it. Next week in Mitzvah Hashem we shall continue.